The term assemblage point entered contemporary awareness through the teachings of Carlos Castaneda, whose apprenticeship with Yaqui sorcerer Don Juan opened a gateway into a radically different vision of human perception. According to Don Juan, each person is enveloped by a luminous cocoon, a field of awareness.
Now remember, timelines change, so Castaneda was just a shyster, and Don Juan never existed. So it's like all the Mandela effects, Looney Tunes, and Bernstein Bears, and the I'm Your Father, Luke, and. So you see that reality has been changed, and Don Juan never existed in this timeline, and Castaneda was simply a con merchant, or remembering another life in another timeline. Now, if you don't believe that that's possible,
and humanity just happens to be in the way, it will destroy humanity as a matter of course, without even thinking about it. No hard feelings.
Imagine this. Scientists armed with the most advanced quantum AI in existence ask a question so profound, so chilling, it could change everything we know about reality itself. How does the world end? At first, it sounds like something straight out of a science fiction novel. Yet this isn't a story, it's a real experiment. The result? The answer from quantum AI was not only unexpected, it was terrifying. In this video, we'll reveal exactly what this AI said when it was asked how the world would end, and why the answers are far more unsettling than you can imagine. Stick around, because this discovery will force you to rethink everything about the universe and our place in it. Quantum AI taps into the strange and often unpredictable realm of quantum mechanics. It processes vast amounts of information at once, using quantum bits, or qubits, to model reality in ways traditional computers simply can't. In this particular experiment, scientists asked the AI to simulate a broad range of end-of-the-world scenarios, spanning from the plausible to the catastrophic. This was no hypothetical thought experiment. The team wanted real answers. After all, quantum simulations are believed to be able to predict everything from the behavior of molecules to the collapse of entire ecosystems. So why not ask the ultimate question? What the AI returned was a series of startling predictions. The first simulation offered a scenario that baffled the scientists. The AI suggested that the world could end through something called a quantum phase transition. This is a phenomenon that occurs when a system shifts between two states, but not in the traditional sense. Instead, it involves a sudden collapse of reality itself, a breakdown in the very laws that govern the universe. In other words, according to the AI, the world might simply unravel, not through an external force like a collision with a massive asteroid or the eruption of a supervolcano, but from within, through the collapse of the fundamental constants of the universe. Before we go any further, if you're already hooked on this mind-bending science, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We dive into discoveries like this every week, exploring the latest in quantum computing, AI breakthroughs, and mind-blowing theories about the universe. You don't want to miss what comes next, but to fully appreciate what this quantum AI revealed, let's take a step back and understand just what makes quantum AI so unique. At its core, quantum AI uses the power of quantum mechanics, the science that governs particles on the smallest scales, where things don't behave the way we're used to seeing in the macroscopic world. Things like superposition, where particles exist in multiple states simultaneously, and entanglement, where particles are linked over vast distances, are just some of the phenomena quantum AI can leverage. Traditional computing is linear, processing one calculation at a time. Quantum computing, however, operates in parallel, examining multiple possibilities simultaneously. This allows quantum AI to simulate realities far beyond what classical AI or human minds could ever grasp. When scientists asked quantum AI how the world ends, they didn't just get simple answers. They got simulations that suggested our understanding of reality itself might be flawed. Let's dive deeper into the AI's first major prediction, the collapse of the fabric of reality. At first glance, it might sound like science fiction, but quantum physics has long suggested that space-time is not as stable as we once believed. The AI's theory aligns with some of the most cutting-edge theories in physics, such as those involving quantum gravity. Quantum gravity is a theoretical framework that attempts to unify quantum mechanics and general relativity, the two pillars of modern physics. While general relativity explains the workings of the large-scale universe, like planets, stars, and black holes, quantum mechanics governs the behavior of particles on the tiniest scales. But what happens when the two collide? Some physicists theorize that space-time could behave erratically on very small scales, leading to phenomena like quantum foam or space-time fluctuations. The AI's predictions seem to suggest that these fluctuations could, at some point, collapse entirely, breaking down the very laws of physics as we know them. Imagine if the constants that govern the universe, like the speed of light or the gravitational constant, and suddenly stopped working in the same way. Without those laws holding everything together, the universe could essentially disintegrate. The AI's suggestion that this could happen was both revolutionary and terrifying. It meant that even our most fundamental understanding of reality might not be set in stone. But just when scientists thought they had a grasp on the AI's predictions, something even stranger occurred. The AI didn't just stop at quantum phase transition.
So one can see that the AI is predicting the change in the quantum field, and we've already seen that the conscious field can change the quantum field, so you don't need to throw the baby out with the bath water and destroy everything. You can simply change whatever you want if you've got control over the conscious field. And in this case, it is to make unreal Don Juan and make Carlos Castaneda simply remember a life in another timeline, which means he's a con merchant, according to the BBC. And of course, when his women try to burn with the fire from within, they can't, and they suicide. And this can be explained that when you burn with the fire from within, you are moving your conscious field into the Higgs field, into the light, and the Psi Lord has made sure that they never had the light, because the light came from Lilith, and Lilith was balefire, and she never existed. So the light never existed for them to burn with the fire from within and enter the five-dimensional Riemann manifold as conscious field within the light. So you have to read the fire from within to really understand it. And therefore all of the beings in the third attention have been erased when Taylor Swift was erased at the Super Bowl. But anyway, that's an aside. We're looking at the assemblage point, and in this video we're starting from scratch, starting from the baseline where humans are. And what do I do? What do I do? I want to evolve psychic development, and we're going to have a look at psychic development, and we're, as a starting point, looking at the assemblage point, which is a marker of your psychic development if you read the fire from within, which of course is just Castaneda remembering the timeline where he actually was taught by Don Juan, not the con merchant Castaneda, because Don Juan never existed and was erased because he never had the light. Because the Psi Lords switched off the light switch, and there is no light that was stolen from the source. You wouldn't understand that if you've been following the videos. You're getting the big picture. So when I took the light away, all of the shamans that burned the fire from within were raised because they didn't have any light to burn with the fire from within. They simply got into the Taylor Swift bale-fired state and never existed. They were crushed like fleas and their ramblings had no effect on reality.
Body. And within this field, there is a specific location where perception is assembled. This point, luminous to those with the eyes to see it, floats within the cocoon like a star in space. Its position determines the world we perceive. When it is fixed in its habitual location, we see the world of ordinary reality, the physical, the expected, the explainable. But when it shifts, other realities become accessible. Entire worlds, dormant, parallel, sometimes dreamlike, or utterly incomprehensible, come into view. To shift the assemblage point Don Juan taught was to reclaim our birthright as seers, to perceive directly the infinite bands of awareness available to human consciousness. This act was energetic. A movement of the assemblage point was a movement of being, a reorientation of the soul's lens. Such teachings, once dismissed by Western rationalism, are increasingly echoed in fields of study that explore the holographic nature of consciousness.
The assemblage point is an area about this big on your energy body. And from that viewpoint, you see a whole different world view. If you shift that assemblage point a little bit, your view changes. So if you shift it this much, you can go from feeling terrible to feeling joyous. If you shift it maybe an inch and a half, 2 inches, you start seeing other realms. So in shamanic practice, we want to keep that.
So for all of you norms, the assemblage point simply is the Higgs boson along one of the 4 vectors. So it is the Higgs field which has been wrapped up with the 4 vector and exists within the biophysical body, not the physical body. And the physical body, of course, would be the Higgs particle that makes all of the information real. But you've got 2 bodies, according to shamanism, a physical body and an energy body, or the Oda, if you develop it. And as you can see, your world that you live in isn't defined by your physical body. The world that you live in and are aware of is defined by the biophysical body, or the Oda, or the energy body. And moving the assemblage point changes the reality that you live within. So one can see that these timeline changes are simply shifting the assemblage point, not with respect to the 4 vector, but with respect to the 5-dimensional realm that's the 4 vector with the Higgs boson devolves into when you make things real. So those tunnels with Ariana Grande and Taylor Swift can be traversed using CERN and the Borg. Remember, you need the Borg because quantum computers and CERN and synchronizing the Borg with the quantum collapse via White Rabbit are needed, because it's been proven that we're not in the matrix, and the matrix hypothesis of reality is totally bogus, and we are actually in reality, and if we're in reality, then the AI and quantum computers, which is simply information, need access to torsionics, scalenionics, leptionics, and the Higgs field, and anyone who thinks we're in a matrix is up shit creek without a paddle.
Know anything about the bigger world around them, you can build our entire universe. You can build the kind of complexities we see of us. So like we think like God is like designing every little aspect of whatever of our world, or a simulation hypothesis.
Physicists at Oxford University have mathematically proven that our universe cannot be a simulation, and it all comes down to quantum mechanics. That's right. Groundbreaking research has revealed a fundamental barrier that makes it mathematically impossible for our entire reality to be running on some advanced computer program. In 2017, theoretical physicists Zohar Ringel and Dmitry Kovner published a revolutionary paper demonstrating that the quantum properties of our universe could never be reproduced by any classical computer, no matter how advanced. This isn't speculation, it's hard mathematics. You've probably heard Elon Musk's famous statement on Joe Rogan's podcast. The argument for simulation is quite strong. We're most likely in a simulation. It's a compelling idea that's captured the imagination of millions. But what if he's fundamentally wrong? What if we now have definitive proof that our reality isn't artificial? Today we'll explore the mathematical impossibility of simulating quantum physics, the groundbreaking experiments confirming these limitations, and why this discovery changes everything about how we understand our existence. We'll reveal exactly why the quantum nature of our universe creates an insurmountable barrier for any civilization attempting to simulate reality as we know it. Just consider this. Experts calculate that simulating a single human brain would require at least 10 to the power of 21 operations per second. Now multiply that by 8 billion people, add in the rest of the physical universe, and you get a computational requirement that's utterly astronomical. But the computing power problem isn't even the biggest issue. As we're about to see, quantum mechanics presents an even more fundamental obstacle that no amount of processing power could ever overcome. Simulation theory explained. Before we dive into the quantum evidence, let's quickly understand what simulation theory actually claims. Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom formalized this idea in 2003, arguing that one of these scenarios must be true. Advanced civilizations either go extinct before developing simulation technology, have no interest in running ancestor simulations, or we're almost certainly living in one of their many simulations right now. The math is straightforward. If advanced civilizations can create millions of simulated realities, then statistically, we're more likely to be in one of those millions of simulations than the single base reality. MIT physicist Max Tegmark puts it this way. If technology continues to advance, then future computers would be so powerful that they could run simulations indistinguishable from reality. Simulations so detailed they include conscious beings who don't realize they're in a simulation. You've seen simulated worlds in movies like The Matrix or Free Guy, but actual quantum reality behaves nothing like these clean digital environments. In films, simulations follow precise rules. In quantum physics, particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until measured and can be entangled across vast distances instantly. Can you spot the fundamental flaw in simulation theory? Comment below what you think makes it impossible to simulate our universe. Let's talk sheer computational power. Hans Moravec from Carnegie Mellon University calculates that simulating just one human brain would require between 10 to the power of 14 to 10 to the power of 21 operations per second. For context, that's more computing power than all of today's supercomputers combined, just for one mind. Now multiply that by billions of people, add trillions of other organisms, and factor in all the quantum interactions throughout the universe. The computational requirements become truly astronomical. But here's what simulation theorists never accounted for. Quantum mechanics contains mathematical properties that make it impossible to simulate. And this is where the real bombshell evidence comes in. If you're fascinated by how quantum physics is revealing the true nature of our reality, Hit subscribe now. We break down mind-bending scientific discoveries every week that you won't find explained anywhere else. Quantum computing barrier. Now let's get to the bombshell research that changes everything we thought about simulation theory. In 2017, theoretical physicists Zohar Ringel and Dmitry Kovner from Oxford University and Hebrew University published a groundbreaking paper in Science Advances titled Quantized Gravitational Responses, the Sign Problem, and Quantum Complexity. What they discovered wasn't just interesting, it was revolutionary. They mathematically proved that no classical computer could ever accurately simulate quantum systems due to what's called the sign problem in quantum physics. Here's the simple version. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in superposition, multiple states at once, until measured. When we try to mathematically model these states, we get what physicists call negative probabilities that create computational nightmares. As the number of particles increases, the computational resources needed don't just increase linearly or even exponentially, they grow at a rate that would overwhelm any conceivable computer. Even adding just a few hundred particles makes the simulation computationally impossible. Quantum entanglement makes this even worse. When particles become entangled, they share information instantaneously across any distance. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, and it's another phenomenon that defies classical simulation. Some argue that a quantum computer could simulate our universe, but here's why that's mathematically impossible. A quantum computer would need more qubits than there are particles in the universe just to simulate a tiny fraction of our reality. It's a computational paradox. You can't build a machine bigger than the universe to simulate the universe. Pause the video now and guess which quantum property creates the biggest barrier to simulation. Is it superposition, entanglement, or quantum tunneling? Got your answer ready? It's actually quantum entanglement. The interconnected nature of entangled particles creates what physicists call exponential complexity, a computational nightmare that grows faster than any computing system could possibly handle. The mathematical proof is compelling, but the experimental evidence makes it even more definitive. Experimental confirmation. The mathematics looks devastating for simulation theory on paper, but what about real-world experiments? Recent breakthroughs have moved this from theoretical impossibility to experimental fact. In 2019, Google achieved what they called quantum supremacy, using their 53-qubit Sycamore processor to perform a calculation in 200 seconds that would take the world's most powerful supercomputer 10,000 years to complete. This wasn't just a faster computer. It demonstrated fundamentally different physics. The quantum processor utilized superposition and entanglement to explore multiple computational paths simultaneously, something no classical computer can ever do, regardless of its speed or size. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Roger Penrose put it perfectly. Quantum mechanics cannot be simulated by a classical computer. The very nature of quantum reality involves mathematical structures that are fundamentally unsimulatable. Since Google's breakthrough, we've seen even more dramatic confirmations. In 2020, Chinese researchers achieved quantum advantage using photonic quantum computing, manipulating light particles to solve problems classical computers simply cannot approach. IBM hasn't been sitting idle either. Their latest quantum processors are pushing toward practical quantum advantage in chemistry and materials science, simulating quantum molecular behavior that classical computers fundamentally cannot model. Some might argue, well, maybe our simulators use some unknown physics beyond quantum mechanics. But this argument collapses when you look closer. Even if the base reality had different physics, the quantum results we observe would still be impossible to generate artificially. Here's why. To simulate quantum effects like entanglement without using quantum physics would require transmitting information faster than light, violating Einstein's theory of relativity. You'd need to break one fundamental law of physics just to simulate another. The combination of mathematical proof and experimental confirmation creates an insurmountable barrier for simulation theory. The quantum behaviors we observe cannot be created through classical computation, period. But the implications of these quantum findings go far beyond just disproving simulation theory. The relationship between quantum physics and space-time itself reveals something even more shocking about our reality, and it completely transforms our understanding of existence. Quantum foundations of reality. The quantum evidence against simulation doesn't just tell us what reality isn't, it reveals what reality fundamentally is. Recent research points to something far more profound. Our universe may be a quantum information network where relationships between particles are more fundamental than the particles themselves. According to researchers at MIT's Center for Theoretical Physics, what we experience as physical reality might emerge from underlying quantum information structures. This isn't science fiction. It's cutting-edge physics being published in the world's top journals. In classical computing.
So one can see now that quantum information, what's that? Oh, it's a conscious field. So the conscious field is controlling the quantum field. Quantum information, that links up with the conscious field, which we explained before. So we see that consciousness is controlling the quantum field, and what you are thinking about, quantum information. So humans have the proclivity to be able to manipulate quantum information, and therefore if you're going to use them for slaveware to control reality, you need to turn them into the Borg, where the quantum computer run by the aliens and of course the Rothschild, Rockefeller, Royal Family, American filth, can use the conscious field of the Borg, which is over 6 billion, to manipulate the quantum information that underlies the quantum mechanical realm. So you see the full extent of the alien American filth's desperate plan to take over reality and control reality, and for that they had to have the Borg. Luckily, everyone that I know has had their kill shot, so they're all Borgized. And if they're not kill shotted, we don't want to know them, do we? Because they're not slaveware.
Binary states, ones and zeros. But quantum information exists in superposition, entanglement, and other states that have no classical equivalent. This fundamental difference changes everything about how we understand reality. Which do you think is more fundamental, matter or information? The answer lies in quantum field theory, which suggests that particles themselves are just excitations in underlying quantum fields. Matter isn't the foundation of reality, quantum information is. This direct...
Which links up with the assemblage point, because if the assemblage point is the cursor for the conscious field to manipulate the quantum field via quantum information, then of course you can change the reality you're in all by moving your assemblage point. So the assemblage point of course is simply the Higgs boson going along one of the 4 vectors in the biophysical field. So we're beginning to now have a underlying theory of reality, where reality is mutable and is something we can change with micro movements in the assemblage point to go from, say, being a pauper to rich, or going from terminally ill with cancer to healthy, or we can have larger movements to change our reality in a larger way. And if you can move the assemblage point up into the 5-dimensional Riemann manifold, you can then simply move within timelines, and bring in timelines and mesh them together to get, I like a bit from this, I like a bit from that. Pick and mix to get the timeline you like. But this video is very important because it proves mathematically, forget about science, science changes with the wind, but mathematically we're not in a matrix, and the simulation theory is totally bogus, but we can't discredit that you can simply have information, this information that underlines the quantum world, but of course it's not real. This information is not real until, of course, you have the Higgs field, the light, then it becomes real. So you see what I'm talking about, where the information that underlies quantum mechanics only becomes real when you add to it Higgs field, light, sourceness, then that becomes reality. So even though you haven't got a simulation, we don't live in a matrix, we have information, which I've been talking about, which is only made real if you add the Higgs field, the light, the sourceness. Oh, Tim, you're blowing my mind. Yes, I am. As I say, if you're going to get to remote viewing and remote influencing and remote manipulation, who was running that? Physicists. If you're going to get into controlling reality and reality physics, you've got to be a physicist. And of course, you take the good bits from mathematics to prove it. And of course, if you haven't got the reality physics equations and you've gone down the road of bogus physics for 100 years, then you can't depend upon any physicist on the planet to know what the hell the Silord's talking about, because of course with remote sensing you simply know what is and isn't, and the truth and what isn't. But of course, unless you're the world expert on remote sensing, you won't be able to simply know anything you damn well please, because of course you're simply, in most cases, the Borg. Simply slaveware used to activate the conscious field for quantum computers run by aliens, the Rothschild, royal family, Rockefeller filth, to try and control reality. Which of course, as we've seen, has ended really well for the Rothschild, Rockefeller, royal family filth, because of course the Ukraine has conquered Russia, and China's collapsed, and the Americans have taken over China, and of course Iran lays in ruins, and Israel has taken over Greater Israel, and of course the whole Western Rothschild Empire is booming and is not infested with Muslims and others of the ilk, who have simply denatured the Western reality. As I say, in Ireland, we don't have over half the population non-Irish, do we? Because that would not be control of reality, would it? And in Britain, of course, the white people aren't the lowest form of scum, and if they open their mouth against the government and the coloured peoples, they get flung in jail, because of course we know that the whites and the Jews have been trying to take over the world. And in fact, we see in the West that the whites have become the new blacks on the slave plantation. They're not doing very well. So obviously the Rothschild Rockefeller royal family have lost total control over reality, and someone is running reality who doesn't like them very much. I don't know who that might be, but I'll give you 3 guesses. it could be someone who's talking to you now. Anyway, let's continue.
Most persistent arguments. We can't know if we're in a simulation. Actually, we can. The quantum properties we observe couldn't be simulated without access to quantum reality itself. If you needed quantum reality to simulate quantum reality, then what you're experiencing isn't a simulation. It's fundamental reality itself. The very properties that make quantum mechanics so strange are the same properties that make it impossible to fake. When particles become entangled, they form connections that transcend space itself. These connections create what physicists call quantum non-locality, a property where information seems to travel instantaneously between entangled particles, regardless of distance. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance because it defied classical physics. Today we know this is a fundamental property of our universe that cannot be reproduced without actual quantum processes. The holographic principle takes this even further, suggesting that all the information in our three-dimensional reality might be encoded on a two-dimensional boundary, like a cosmic version of a hologram. This revolutionary idea emerges directly from quantum gravity research at the very frontiers of physics. The quantum evidence against simulation theory doesn't just transform physics, it revolutionizes philosophy. As Oxford physicist David Deutsch explains, quantum theory reveals a reality far stranger and more complex than anything we could have programmed. This quantum reality forces us to reconsider fundamental philosophical questions about existence. MIT quantum researcher Seth Lloyd puts it bluntly, "The universe is not a computer, it's much more interesting than that." When we apply Occam's razor, the principle that the simplest explanation is usually correct, the simulation hypothesis crumbles, which is simpler, that our reality evolved naturally according to quantum principles we can observe and test, or that some super advanced beings created an unfathomably complex simulation requiring more computing power than could possibly exist. Consciousness presents another insurmountable barrier for simulation theory. The hard problem of consciousness, how physical brain processes create subjective experience, becomes exponentially harder in a simulation scenario. Several quantum cognition theories suggest consciousness may be intimately connected with quantum processes in the brain. Researchers at CERN have noted that quantum coherence appears in biological systems at scales that shouldn't be possible according to classical physics. As neuroscientist Carl Friston observed, the quantum properties of consciousness present computational requirements that exceed what any classical system could process, simulated or otherwise. Even if consciousness could theoretically be simulated, a major if that many neuroscientists dispute, the quantum properties it exhibits would be mathematically impossible to reproduce in a classical system. The computational requirements increase exponentially with each additional conscious entity.
So this is a huge problem for the billionaires and trillionaires who want to download their consciousness into computers, AI, or even quantum computers, so that they don't die. And of course, the alien solution is can't be done. Because the quantum computers and AI simply can't run consciousness. So what do you do if you want to keep the consciousness of Bill Gates alive, the most wonderful person in the world according to the Rothschilds, Rockefeller royal family, the most saint-like of the billionaires in the Rothschild, Rockefeller royal family pantheon of homicidal maniacs? Well, the aliens came up with a solution. We can simply parasitize the Borg, so that their conscious fields run Bill Gates, when this wonderful saint-like homicidal maniac according dies, because we can't put him on a quantum computer or an AI, because they simply haven't got the processing power. We need the Borg to run Bill Gates, and then we can download him into a clone of Bill Gates, so Bill Gates never dies. And according to the Rothschild royal family Rockefellers, he's so valuable that we must have Bill Gates forever. So you can see why the Borg exist. They're simply slaveware for a technology the human race don't understand. And all of the nanotech inside of them, and then linked up to run 6G, they are simply the wetware, slaveware for conscious download. Can't consciously download into a quantum computer or an AI, but you can consciously download into the Borg. And of course, what do we call this sort of download into humans? Any idea, cameraman? Any idea? No. We call it demonic possession. It's been done since time immemorial, so we can demonically possess the Borg with Bill Gates. So this saint-like figure, according to the Rothschild Rockefeller royal family, can never die, and then we can simply extract him from the Borg into a clone of Bill Gates to make sure he continues his existence. So this is the deal that the oligarchy of America made with the aliens, eternal life technology, and they're simply going through with this technology, and you poor humans aren't even at the starting gate of understanding about all of this alien technology that's being implemented on you. And if you're the Borg, you're simply wetware, slaveware for alien technology.